Survival horror is a bit of a mainstay on my gameplay calendar. Bloober Team released Kronos: A New Dawn on the 5th of September in 2025. I will be putting this up against my Game of the Year nominations at the end of the video, so please do hang around. Apologies for getting to this a bit late. My name is Couch Coop. The game sows these brilliant seeds of fear into your brain at the beginning because it gives you a psychosometric, one of those visuals, what do you see in this image tests. I started massively overthinking it. If it showed you like a picture that looked a bit like a spider and you were scared of spiders, but you didn't want to let the game know about that, you might lie and say it looks like a chicken, but then the devs might be aware of something like that and sort of double cross you. I think if this has any involvement in your upcoming structure from the choices you make in this section, that is a genius idea and should be used a lot more. It's a great Black Mirror episode, the VR one with Kurt Russell's son. Can we please stay on topic? That is on topic because this is a sci-fi survival horror, which is even more on the nail for my liking within third-person video games. And it comes with a lot of projectile weaponry. It's set in a crazy looking universe. This has got a great Eastern Bloc aesthetic, very desolate, very grey, very murky. These guys handled that Silent Hill 2 remake, which fans suggest isn't terrible and probably will feature on the channel at some point. By the looks of it, they've landed the job to do the first one, so I'm happy about that. I'm also very happy with the opening and what we're actually looking at here on a graphics performance front. I've gone for quality mode. This is of course on my giant base level PlayStation 5, brackets the white whale. Whoever designed that did not take into account that a 45-year-old man was going to have to lug it around to his mates' houses on a regular basis. 46. With that ancient status acquired, it means I can remember two things: the launch of Dead Space 1 when that first came out on its original system, and when the PlayStation 1 was literally the size of a sandwich maker. This thing was tiny. Hell is going on? I think the PlayStation 7 may come with a set of small wheels on the bottom of it. Okay, now you are off topic. Let's do the pans. Let's do some of these visuals. The lighting is beautiful. The protagonist, that suit as well, amazing design. Sprinkling of Big Daddy in there. The faceless mask is awesome. Got these like rebar studs coming out of the shoulders. It looks like something that's made to be plugged into something else. There's even Geiger-esque pipes all going around the back. And if you've seen this game knocking around, you're probably well aware of this protagonist design. I had no real preconceptions of the setup within the game on a layout level until sitting down with it. I didn't get to a demo, early access, none of that. So I wasn't sure what they were going to do with the whole world building. Was it going to be on rails, corridor driven? Were we going to be looking at open sections of map, exploring that sort of thing? And the good news is it does the quite difficult job of almost straddling both of those options, giving you mildly open areas to explore, gather resources, find little secrets, but then it will shove you down one-way corridors a la Dead Space. The claustrophobia is strong with this game. I wouldn't recommend it if you don't like really loud noises, not being able to see what's going on, and constantly running down dead ends. I find something strangely comical about the dying animation. We'll get to that later. So this footage is really stage one of some of the problem solving that you will have to do, and it is getting a fuse for a fuse box. Now back to that BM46 thing. I don't know how many fuses I've fetched and found and put in to get things working. Can you put in the comments how many times you've probably done it? It's not a knock on the devs, because what else or how else are you going to get electrical equipment working that's broken? It just seems a little bit too obvious in 2025/26. It could be a nod. It's a bit like JRPGs that go down to the mines. Going down to the mines, a level in the mines, and it's normally level 2. You wouldn't believe the amount of video games that do that. Don't look at this code. Do not look at this code. Look away. This is cheating. This is not a walkthrough. Look away from the code. After the fuse thing, it then totally redeemed itself by showing me this piece of equipment that was respirating. A little bit like that stuff does in the 12 Monkeys. A sort of weird analog style technology that you see in very few films, and it's awesome to have it in a video game. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. All the equipment that you work with is aged metal. The whole thing has this dilapidation attached to it. And I'm pointing out here that this has got a save room style Resident Evil get to a save to actually manually do it yourself. But there is an autosave, and it is surprisingly forgiving, taking loads of frustration out of some of the more tougher areas. warriors. And back to that 12 monkeys analogy briefly, and we saw a lot of this in the trailer. You are referred to as the traveller, and you're clearly going via dimensions or through time or to some other realm. There is this sort of visitor status about you, which is completely parallel with that amazing film. Running for your sweet life is also a valid option in loads of situations. Again, this was a bit of a surprise to me. You can maneuver around these things quite well, and there is an allocated run button. You're far more nimble than that suit looks. Now, some of that harks back to the original Resident Evil games, and what it does really well emulating is that fantastic I've got no ammo, I've got to get out of here. Liberally expending shots is not an option, and you're always keeping an eye out for combustible furniture as well. This game's got more explosive barrels in it than Serious Sam, but we will get to that. There is a combat section coming up, and I do want to just finish off explaining the leveling and sort of power-up system. There is an economy. You're picking up these credits, you might find something particularly valuable. Now again, like early RE and current, it does rely on inventory space being limited, switching things out, buying a new slot for that, constantly jostling what you've got, what you don't need, what you've got to throw down, put into storage. All those decisions are there. You also have on-the-fly crafting, which I think is a great idea. A lot of your equipment sits on the directional buttons, including the pistol and shotgun, and you just lean on those buttons to craft more ammunition or tap them to switch to that particular weapon. Storage and having more than I needed was not a thing for me in the early section of the game, but things do start to accumulate and you understand why those systems are there. I have restarted from certain sections after lengthy death, and the box that would normally have a credit in it has switched and had some ammunition in it. I think they've put in a slight bit of leeway with the reward if you're in trouble, because again, it does push you down dead ends. You will jump off a ledge that is irreversible and be faced with an arena style battle. Combustion is also a super important part of the game, and one of the first perks you get is an L1 flamethrower that litters the ground with fire, and that is the one element that really dislodges or destabilizes the enemies. It's kind of very important, and again, an aspect I wasn't expecting being such a mainstay in the mechanics. The enemies against that pistol, as you can see, are remarkably bullet spongy. The pistol comes with a build move, which does actually put the stoppers on them. The build is a one-way ticket, however, and will go off even if you're not pointing at anything of any value. That build can be cancelled, however, on L2. There's also a lot of these dispensers knocking around, which will have one flame use in them, and you can use it up and go back to the machine and get another one. You can't stack them. This creates strange situations where you're hanging around a dispenser, the enemies are coming at you, you're burning them, and then you're going back to retrieve another one. The light goes green to red, it takes a while. I think you're immune in the door opening animation, but it's tense to say the least. I feel I can mention at this point that the main character is actually female. Quite a welcome twist. The voice is cold as hell, very minimal on the emotion front, and some of the responses you give to people don't exactly paint you in the most hospitable light. Target seated. Let's have a chat about these creatures, because they are very humanoid at the beginning, and if you saw the trailer material, you'll know that they can latch onto each other, revive corpses, have these sort of tentacles coming out of their stomachs. There is that evil within. Get rid of the corpse in case it could be revived by something else wandering around. Some of them have an extended arm that it will shoot out towards you, not too long distance. You do have projectile enemies coming up later, and they will full on operate headless, which I always think is a bonus. Armor is also introduced, and weak spots are a thing with different enemy types, and you have to really watch out about wasting ammo on something that's immune from gunfire on certain body parts. We do also have a universe switch mechanic involving the gun firing at certain targets around this miasma. You will get a reverse time reconstruction of something, a doorway will open or a bridge will rebuild. Even lifts are put in this way. So that's interesting, and it implies it in quite a lot of puzzles. It doesn't exhaust the mechanic, thank God, and this is a survival sci-fi horror at heart. It's not like it's shoved a lot of complicated, take this there, put this in that hole. The majority of this game is about killing stuff. That torch does not have a switch on it. It comes on automatically, and if there is some sort of anomaly going on, it might flicker. Most of the areas where things kick off are also very tight corridors, and it does a great job of bouncing the light around and causing just panic through good suspenseful lighting, which is what all of the decent survival horror games do. Kronos should get a particular mention for it because it does lean on lots of that. And the hive-like miasma, macabre, the thing like bodies up on the ceiling involved in some crustaceanal mutation is excellently handled. This clip coming up was particularly stressful, in a good way. Slung into a very tight arena with loads of cavernous corners, that torch really comes into its own. Some of these fire mechanics look fantastic in this lighting. On the Dead Space subject, you can see also that I have a swing outwards and I do have a stamp underfoot. None of it is an exact science, however, and particularly weak against some of the enemies. And you can just cheese and dodge a lot of those moves that the monsters are doing towards you. So there is far less of that stand and deliver psychology that you would see in an early Dead Space game, and a lot more dodge and avoid, reposition, use explosive environments that you would see in an old school Resident Evil game. Combined with this awesomely unique sci-fi setting and some great ammunition stinginess on the drops, and you've got yourself quite an interesting game model. And enough is being done, I feel, to separate it from Dead Space or even Callisto Protocol. I was mentioning that death animation at the start of the video, and I feel they could have expanded on it a little bit. Now we are going to talk about the Dead Space remake briefly. I actually don't mind it. I know it annoyed a lot of people. The people that remade it clearly weren't huge fans of the series either. There was some weird stuff in there, but they dumbed down Isaac's death animations depending on what he was fighting and how he died, and it was one of the greatest things about the original Dead Space. It had this horrific video nasty like horror in it, and I know that sounds a bit macabre and bloodthirsty, but it went a very long way, and it would have done in this game. There is also a tit shot coming up here. Don't say I don't capture anything worth capturing. Was one of the things that stood out to me on the gameplay trailer was how detailed that dissipation looked, how advanced the engine appeared, and a lot of that is kept in here. The enemies are very thin and sinuous and difficult to get chunks off, but that does change with the variants that are coming up. I just wish they'd have pushed that more a little bit earlier. You do, however, get a double barrel shotgun very early, and it has a manual reload on it, meaning you fire 2 shots and then go to fire again. It will just not do anything until you pump that square button to get 2 more bullets in. That shit will 100% get you killed. And on the subject of variants, we are introduced to some pretty cool little acid bug dudes that not only occupy stationary objects, but also crawl around and walk after you. And pretty soon the enemy starts spitting at you as well. Every time I come up with a plus point about this game, I seem to be met with a minus. And the other one is one of the first sort of main bosses, which isn't huge spoiler territory. You probably know that I'm completely obsessed with Resident Evil 5 because it's one of the best sort of local Resident Evil games out there. The campaign is hilarious, and we all know about that dude that you have to lock in the furnace, who's a bunch of black worms essentially. Yeah, almost identical, even got like pressure points that you've got to shoot, similar to some of the enemies in the Dead Space games. So that one didn't over impress me, but it's still a terrifying boss. Sweet Baby Ink reference may be there. I know I have mentioned Dead Space a ridiculous amount of times in this video, and I want to, if I can be so bold, to plug my Dead Space 2 versus that remastered. Dead Space 2 I feel is a little bit of a forgotten hero in that series. 3 was obviously strange as hell, and the first one, you know, set the mold for a lot of games we play today. So I would love some feedback on that video, and sorry for shoving it in your face like that. Where would I put this game on my Game of the Year 2025 list if I had played it last year? Pretty much at the start. Hell Is Us featured quite highly on that list. But this is sci-fi survival horror. It's not going to light everybody's fire. But I'm pretty sure I didn't see a single nomination. I might be wrong on that one. And on that subject of nominations and survival horror and 9th generation video games, I cannot help but constantly go back to that Resident Evil 4 remake. Holy crap, that is almost perfection for the genre, but it is not sci-fi. What are you doing? I managed to pick this up for £45 British pre-owned, which I think isn't a bad price at all. I know it retailed at a bit more than that, and it may well appear on some of the subscription services in 2026. Fans of the genre, like myself, are going to have a brilliant time with this. Maybe a little bit long in the tooth, but I feel this is still doing just enough to separate it from those aforementioned games. My name was, of course, Couch Cube. More local and single player games content coming up. I will see you down there.
Beginning new ascendant sequence.
What was that? What was that? Who was that smoothed out, like pebble looking bloke?